Mo money doesn't come with mo problems for the University of Utah. Josh Furlong, KSL.com, Ute Insider, kind enough to join us. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing well, Scotty. How are you?
Good. $500 million help out your bank account? Because it certainly seems like it's going to help out the University of Utah's.
Hey, can we just get, because we cover the U, can we get a little bit of that cut? I mean, I'll take a half of a percent, get whatever we need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we're not asking for much. 1% would be fine. I'd be totally fine with that. So, look, there's a lot of people that are concerned about this because anytime you let private equity get involved, there's a high level of accountability, and they run things like a business and a for-profit business, which the University of Utah Athletics now is. Where's your concern level about this? Obviously, the money's great, but there's also a lot of strings that come attached with this stuff.
Yeah, obviously, short term, it's great, right? You get an infusion of cash that absolutely helps the university in this day and age where it's really difficult to be able to fund all the different demands that you have, whether that be through the revenue share contracts or anything else with NIL. That's great. But obviously, like you said, private equity, that always comes with, kind of this hesitation to want to accept it, and for good reason, because a lot of these private equity firms, they go in there, they obviously want to increase profits, and then when you can't get that or it doesn't work out, they gut you, and things are ruined. So I think there's definitely fear in that regard, but I do think the way that Utah has kind of organized this, I don't want to say it eliminates all risk, because there's always risk associated with this, right? Especially in any for-profit arm of anything. But I think with what they've done and being able to maintain controlling interest, being able to utilize that cash to be able to help both of these parties grow, that at least gives it much more of a fighting chance, because now both parties have to be able to kind of put forth their effort. And so one of the things that kind of struck me from one of the members of the board was talking about this as kind of a mentorship, right? This is an opportunity for them to give you that foot in the door, so to speak, so that you can get in and get all the resources that you need to make this work, and then eventually see that exit. Now, the path to get that exit and where that leads Utah and what happens along the way, that's obviously the real meat of the story and trying to figure out what it is. But I think at least the way that they've structured it at least makes more sense than just this raw private equity deal where they're throwing you a bunch of cash and you don't know what the next 5 or 7 years are going to look like.
Interesting. I did see Charlie Baker from the NCAA was asked about it, and he said it's something that I think Utah did a very how they handled it was smartly done, and that the NCAA was at least was made aware of the background on it. And so there's a lot of people signing off on this that are saying, yeah, it's a smart move. And I think the thought, when you bring up the thought of an exit plan from this, I like that. And I like the fact that this is looking at like, hey, look, we need some help right now. Let's get that help right now, and then find a way to mutually kind of perhaps in the next decade or so kind of separate from this.
Yeah, and I think part of that, too, is this is an entity that they don't want to see ever go away, right? It's more using them to be able to get that jump start and then slowly see them exit, but then fill that in with either other strategic partners or not, depending on how they're able to make it work. And so the one thing that kind of gives you a modicum of belief that this can work is that this is more based on founders, by boosters trying to support, instead of just throwing money into some unlimited pool where you're essentially burning it because you don't know where that money's going to go. This now has true potential to be able to have investment potentials, where you can grow that revenue. You can then utilize it in a way, in a more for-profit avenue that you couldn't before. And so there's benefits there, because now you have people that are attached to the university, people that are highly invested in the university wanting to succeed, putting money into this in a way that is far less than just throwing money into an athletic department that's going to burn it at will. You don't know what the coaches are going to do with it. You don't know what sponsors are going to do with it. This is a little bit different in that regard. It still comes with risk by all means.
Yeah.
But I think there's at least more of a backing to this where everybody knows that you're going to need an infusion of cash in any level of the athletic departments around the country. And if this works, it's beautiful, right? Like, this is a great idea, and Utah's going to be looked at as this, revolutionary, program that changed the way of college that changes the landscape of college athletics. But if it fails, this becomes kind of, one more part of the NCAA problem where, nobody can get it right, and it's just another problem after another problem.
Now, I don't know what failure looks like and how bad that can be, but I do applaud the University of Utah, the Board of Trustees, Mark Harlan, and everybody that came on board with this because so much. And look, I loved Utah in the Pac-12. I love that conference, but I do think the Pac-12 was, and this is a reason why they may not really exist anymore, they were too reactionary and not really innovative on how to get ahead of issues. And so I applaud the University of Utah in this and being like, you know what? Everybody's waiting to see who the first one is to jump in the pool. We'll do it, and let's go, and let's see what happens. Because if we just sit here on the sidelines and let the world pass us by, we can't do it. So let's at least try to do something, and I admire that.
Yeah, you have to admire that. I mean, I think the fact that they're not just kind of waiting on the sidelines hoping that it works, or that they can find something down the line after it's been proven, kind of shows their level of commitment to this, right?
Yeah.
This isn't just some haphazard thing. This is something that they started the process in June of last year of trying to come up with a way to fund the athletics. They knew, the NCAA ruling was going to come down. The House ruling was going to come down. They knew that there was going to be a situation where suddenly you're going to have to fund at least $20 million. On top of that, you have NIL. You have all these things. And so, you have to credit Taylor Randall of all these people. And there's many people to thank there, but you have to credit him for kind of his grand vision of what this is. He also sees this beyond this, right? I think if you take a next step beyond this, they're realizing that the landscape of college athletics is nowhere near settled. And if they can use this as kind of a leverage point to maybe get to a higher level, whether that be the Big Ten or whatever the Power 2 structure looks like or whatever that may be, this is another stepping stone to get there, where if it works, now you're suddenly in a much better and more favorable landing spot than trying to be the guy coming from behind and saying, hey, pick us, pick us.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was expressed to me when I was talking to some people earlier this morning about this. And they said that, it would be really easy to say, and frankly, a little lazy to say that, this is done to keep pace with BYU. And in reality, what it is, and this is the same thing that BYU's doing, is everybody's just trying to position themselves so that when the dust clears, whether it be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now, that you've got a seat at the big boys table because you're right. This is going to a Power 2. It's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC, and then whoever else they want to invite into the party, and you want to get one of those invitations.
Well, there's a reason why Taylor Randall has laid out the plan that he has beyond just this private equity. If you may remember, I think it was about 6 months ago, the university laid out a plan to completely renovate and change the entire look of the university campus and create these different areas, whether it be entertainment districts or other avenues where, the Huntsman Center being demolished is part of that aspect of it. They're trying to build up this new campus, so to speak, to be able to position themselves in a way that it works, whether that be increasing student body, increasing, the dorms, increasing the facilities. They're doing all of those things as a step to be able to get to whatever that future landscape looks. This now is just another vehicle to get there, and it just so happens to be one that can actually fund a ton of money, and it also lines up very well with kind of what the Big Ten is doing right now as well. They're trying to find private equity deals to be able to get there. So, the university hasn't been shy about their ideals of trying to get to, everybody says the Big Ten, and I think that lines up based off of like their academic affiliations, different things that way. But it's really just lining up in general with whatever that Power 2 structure or whatever that new structure looks like, where they can now position themselves and say, hey, look, we check this box, we check this box, we check this box. Oh, by the way, now we have the funds. We've created a model that works. That's what Utah's trying to do. So, yeah, as much as it is about now, they're genuinely looking to the future, and it may blow up in their face, right? We still don't know, but they're trying to look to the future to be able to get into that better landing spot.
So when you look at, you've covered Utah for a long time. You've seen a lot of really good Utah teams. This is a team that lost to a top 4 team in the college football playoff and a team that is making a lot of noise saying that they should be in the college football playoff in Texas Tech and BYU. This is a 10-2 Utah team. Frankly, the conversation should be, should Utah be in the college football playoff as well? Because the season they put together sadly isn't getting talked about enough, but this is one of Kyle Whittingham's better teams. Am I exaggerating in saying that?
No, not at all. And I think when you look at it, there's really just not that many 10-win seasons that take place in Utah history. If I look back, I think Kyle Whittingham has had only 8 over his entire tenure. And of that, 4 of those came with a regular season 10 wins. So, this is not just something to say, oh, they got 10 wins. this was a pretty remarkable turnaround in what Utah was able to do at a Power Four level. I think the problem with why there's not so many people commenting about Utah is one, the way the last two games went, right? The run defense just absolutely was porous. Things didn't work out very well. You kind of sputtered to the end. Yes, you got wins, but it came as a come from behind stuff. But then there was always just kind of that factor of you're always going to be behind BYU. Maybe if Utah went out and absolutely destroyed Kansas State and then destroyed Kansas, maybe you had a little bit of a belief that maybe if BYU loses that championship game that they could get Utah could jump. But I just think there was always kind of a ceiling for Utah with where the committee ranked them, that there wasn't going to be any more of these resume builders, right? Like you're not playing another top 25 team. And so it just became a challenge for this Utah team to get there. With that said, this is a team that is on the fringe. And I think I told many people at the beginning of the season that if you can be in that conversation, whether it be for a conference championship or into the playoffs, I think that's success right there, right? And if you can now parlay that success into next year, that's going to help, right? Like it's learning to kind of stack these seasons where BYU gets a benefit as well from being able to stack seasons. And you could argue maybe they didn't get the benefit that they needed. But when you continue to stack seasons, you can kind of start getting those benefits of the doubt because you keep proving it. Utah can now say, yeah, we had one or two bad seasons because of injuries. But if you look beyond that, we were in the Pac-12 championship 4 out of the last 5 years. Now, if we can get into it, we're in the conversation of the Big 12. That at least gets you in that conversation and allows you to kind of be a part of that conversation moving forward.
So Nebraska moved the meter for you. It's a name, but not necessarily a great team. Utah already a high favorite in that game. And in Vegas, you are playing in an NFL stadium. How do you think this is resonating with Utah fans right now?
It's been kind of an interesting mixed bag because, 2 years ago when Utah got to the Vegas Bowl, I think people were just done, right? And I think it also was 2 days before Christmas, and so there wasn't a lot of excitement. I'm getting a little bit more excitement about this team based on kind of the interactions that I've seen and the people that I've talked to. Nebraska, it's a Big Ten opponent, and obviously you want to go beat up on one of those, especially in the conversations that we had earlier. But I think just with what this Nebraska team presents, it's not really that exciting of a matchup because you go from being ranked 15th in the country with a 10-2 season to playing a 7-5 team that's 10th in the Big Ten. Like it doesn't have the same validity to it. But at the same time, with where Utah's been in with bowl games and being on a 5-game losing skid, I think there's optimism that to finally turn the corner and say, hey, we don't know how long these bowl games are going to last. Obviously, the playoffs are the ideal. But if we can go and get another win in a bowl game, I think that gives at least another reason to be happy and successful. So I think there's optimism. I think fans are happy for it. It obviously comes at a better time in Las Vegas. People can go celebrate New Year's Eve, if you're into that kind of stuff. And so I think there's more optimism that way to be able to see your team out on a high note, especially knowing that a majority of those guys are most likely to come back for next year. So you're not going to have a ton of opt-outs.
Josh Furlong joining us, KSL.com, Utah insider, has covered the Utes for a long time. So are you getting a vibe on Kyle? Does it feel like the longer this goes on, the more likely that he's coming back?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because there's a handful of us media in the Kansas press or in the media room at the end, and it was a completely different vibe from Kyle than I've ever seen before. Like everything was lining up to say Kyle was leaving, right? And I won't get into all the specifics, but it was clear that this was different. He was kind of soaking it up. Things were changing. And then as the week went on after that game, I started hearing rumblings that he was considering coming back. And so, I think this is a guy that really just he's struggling with not being in football, which is something that he's been in his entire life. I had an interview with him that just the two of us did a while back ago for a story about his son coaching, and he just said he's nervous about retirement. He doesn't know what that looks like. He's not sure that he's ready to hang it up in terms of being the guy that can just sit on the sidelines and be a fan. And so I think that's really weighing in on him. There's also conversations that I've had with people that talk about how he really thought in this transfer portal era that it would be much more transactional, meaning you wouldn't get to love the players the same way that you do. You don't get attached to them. and he's absolutely found that not to be the case. And so, he's latched on to Devin Dampier, he's latched on to Bird Ficklin and all these other players. And so it's become so much more difficult to try to walk away, especially when things are good and when you can see kind of what you can be next year. So, I think he sees that the writing's on the wall, that he has to walk away eventually. But if he can continue to ride it out, especially with the 10-2 year, with another year that you could go be in the playoffs potentially, it's tough to kind of want to turn that away and let somebody else benefit from a lot of what you've been able to build on.
Yeah, and I think there's you got Lavelle, who is a mentor, and Lavelle went a long time before shutting it down, but then also could he have enjoyed life a little bit more instead of just schmucking it up with me and Ron McBride and hands on the radio? Like, is there more that he could have? I can see the emotions both ways. He probably got Jamie in his ear saying, "Hey, let's spend more time with the grandkids." This is a tough call, man. This is a really tough decision for him, because ultimately, very rarely in sports do you get to go out on your own, and he has a chance to do that if he wants.
Well, the thing with him is, I've always thought it was kind of like an either-or thing, where it's you coach football and sacrifice your family. And if you retire, it's now taking a priority over your family and spending time with grandkids. The more I've talked to different people that are close to him, the more it's been shown that he actually intertwines those. And so it's like he's finding a different way to create this kind of work-life balance where football is obviously everything, but he's finding ways where the grandkids can be a part of that, where the kids can be a part of that. And so I think that's what's making it even more challenging, is to him, it's like, I've found that balance, right? Like, yeah. I don't need to go and say, hey, we're just going to go travel and I'm going to go spend time with grandkids. I still get to spend time with grandkids, but I also get to do everything that I love. So, it's tough. I don't envy him, because it is a tough decision, and he still believes, that ego of his, that he can do it, and he's proven that he can, especially this year at the 10-2 record. So, until proven otherwise, you got to kind of believe him. But at the same time, there comes a point where there's a diminishing return, right? Where are you staying on too long, and then what happens? Do you get a season like last year where it's a 5-7, and now you're walking away looking at what could have been?
Josh, we appreciate it. Great stuff and great insight as always at KSL.com. Get there now. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
There he is, Josh Furlong. All right, take a break, come back, wrap up this bad boy, get you ready for JJ and Alex next right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.